we used to have a court system where victims could address the people who had committed these crimes against them directly and get direct support from them, and be made whole again, right? But that's not what we have anymore, and we've abdicated a lot of that responsibility to the EPA, who is, by the way, on the side of these companies that are cutting corners.
Absolutely.
But
They're their biggest lobby groups, or transportation companies and companies that damage the environment. They lobby the EPA and they lobby the Department of Transportation.
like there are two different types of regulations, one of which comes from the government, which can change at the drop of the hat, and they're pretty arbitrary, right? These are administrators and politicians who don't really know much about these industries coming up with rules. When in the past, like a very long time ago, we used to use the courts, right? So let's say this had happened, all of these residents of East Palestine could have gone and sued Norfolk Southern, right? And then the courts would have acted as an intermediary to make, Norfolk Southern pay and make these residents whole again for
There is
the
a
property
lawsuit
crimes.
going on, though, right?
Yeah. But the property crimes, like, that's what this is. This is a private property issue, because these people essentially were forced out of their homes for 5 days. There are several families who cite just the sheer amount of money they've had to spend in keeping their families in Airbnbs. This has been a huge economic cost to the residents of East Palestine, and it should be Norfolk Southern alone who is responsible for coming in and paying restitution to these victims, essentially. But what ended up happening, the courts used to function that way. What ended up happening is we, decided they wouldn't. So this happened during the progressive era.
Oh, lovely.
And pollution and things like this started happening more often as more and more companies were able to cut corners. And it got to a point where the EPA came into existence. And now there's a bunch of arbitrary regulations that can get changed at the drop of the hat. Like, as you saw, instead of private companies being incentivized through fear of lawsuits or, something disastrous like this happening to institute safety measures. Like, largely, they're just relying on EPA regulations to
and these huge regulatory boards, what do they even do? I mean, they're always investigating. They're always trying to come to the bottom of this. But it's really, really strange because the National Transportation Safety Board, so the NTSB, they're basically the federal agency in charge of investigating transportation accidents. And so in their preliminary report that they just released, they said that the operators of the train received several warnings to ensure that this didn't happen, like audible warnings that they ignored. According to the agency.
What?
Yep. According to the agency.
Are you serious? Why did they ignore this?
Dude, we don't know yet, but it literally gets so suspicious. So in the preliminary report that the NTSB released, they said a critical audible alarm message instructed the crew to slow down and stop the train to inspect a hot axle on 3 separate occasions when a hot bearing detector system observed high levels of heat. So this hot bearing detector system literally takes the temperature of the bearings that are on the railway and alerts, like literally makes an audible alert system warning saying, yo, check these temperatures. They're too hot. Pull over. After the final warning, so the third warning, the train's engineer, who was already braking due to a train ahead, increased the dynamic brake application to further slow and stop the train. But that was too late. It was too late. So at the first system sensor, the suspect bearing, the thing that the one that caused the derailment on the 23rd car, had a temperature of 38 degrees above what it was supposed to be. At the second system, when it warned again, it was 103 degrees above what it was supposed to be. At the third and final system, right before it derailed, it was 253 degrees Fahrenheit above ambient, what it was supposed to be. That is inexcusable. That is
gross
insane.
Negligence.
250. Like, do you guys know even how 250 degrees is? Like, that is hot. It was that much higher above what it was supposed to be. So this is hundreds of degrees. And so this is a crazy quote. Okay, listen to this. The NTSB chair, Jennifer Hamady, she said it in a press conference. We call these things accidents, but there is no such thing as an accident. Every single event that we investigate is 100% preventable. So she was like, this is not an accident. This was preventable. There was 3 warning signs. It was 253 degrees above what it was supposed to be. There were so many things wrong with this. It's so suspicious to me.
Do you think the people on the train just didn't know what was going on, or?
I'm not a railroad conductor, clearly, so I don't know how this, I don't know exactly the mechanics behind this, but if there was 3 audible warnings and it was overheating and the conductor is only braking because of a train ahead and not because of the warnings, and then decides to pull the brake to further slow it down and stop and then get out and check, and it's already an issue, it just seems weird to me. That's all I will say. It seems weird to me.
Yeah. I'm going to need these residents to drag Norfolk Southern to court.
They should. Honestly, maybe they shouldn't show up to the town hall because they might have got dragged.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did want to read a few, just 2 stories of people in the town and what they've been going through.
Oh, go ahead.
So there's a lady named Desiree Walker. She lives just 900 feet from the site of the wreck. And by the way, a lot of these residents lived really close. This is a small town, okay?
Right.
And residents outside of the town are being affected as well. But so she lived very, very close. She and her family are having symptoms, she says, but doctors don't know what to test for. She says at nighttime, especially, is when we smell it the most. That is creepy. Our throats are sore. We're coughing a lot. My son, his eyes matted shut.
What?
That is so disturbing.
Do you think maybe they're smelling whatever they're using to decontaminate it? Are they doing that more at night or something?
I guess. I think I also read somewhere, I don't know this for sure, but a lot of these chemicals have a really low odor threshold, which, by the way, odor in and of itself is a nuisance. You shouldn't have to stay there while this company is trying to get rid of these disgusting toxic chemicals.
Because one thing I'm saying all across the board is everybody says it smells bad. So
yeah. Oh, 5 days after, they're like, yeah, you can come home. And then Nathan Velez said that he and his wife and 2 children have been staying at Airbnb rentals. He says, my wife is a nurse and is not taking any chances exposing us or our 2 young kids to whatever is now in our town. When he visited the town Monday, he smelled chlorine in the air, right?
Okay.
Burning his throat and eyes. He said the risk and anxiety of trying to live in our own home again is not worth it.
That is horrible.
Yeah.
Imagine being a kid in that situation.
Norfolk Southern could not be bothered to show up to the town hall, I think 2 weeks after the train derailment, to hear these stories. And again, the EPA is all up in this town's business saying, okay, well, we've determined that it's safe. I would not trust that. I would not trust the EPA as far as I can throw them.
No. And even other agencies. So FEMA denied them disaster relief funds. They said they did not qualify for disaster relief funds. So the money that the town could have gotten, say, for people to relocate or to evacuate the area, they did not get FEMA money for that. So thanks Biden administration for that. Thank you, EPA. Thank you, Norfolk Southern. And like you said, it's affecting not even just East Palestine people.
Yeah.
The water, so there's basically 2 main creeks that got contaminated. I remember the name of one of them was Sulphur Run, and the other one may have been maybe Turkey Run or something like that. But it was another run creek, and they pour out into the Ohio River. And so the Ohio River provides drinking water to a lot of cities. So Cincinnati, Ohio, they literally had to block their water intake for their drinking water last week. It may be open now again, but they had to block the water intake because they literally detected what was the chlorine, the vinyl chloride. Is that what it was? Yeah, they detected that in the water. So this is affecting the drinking water for major cities. Cincinnati, Ohio is a major city. It's insane.
Is such a hot mess.
Yeah, it's literally just a hot mess. We should do a hot mess segment on the show.
Girl. Yeah, absolutely. Hot mess of the week, Norfolk Southern.
Shame. Boo.
Shame. Yeah, and I mean, Norfolk Southern is starting a $1 million
that's it,
pot of charity or something for these That's what I'm saying.
1 million does not go far these days.
Court.
What?
You know, like
ridiculous.
I don't care how much money it is. Like they should have to pay restitution to these residents. And I really feel like if we just opened up the market, got the EPA out of the way, and let courts really do their thing here, then residents would be able to sue Norfolk Southern for all of it, you know, like every cent to make things right. And no company would ever risk doing something like this in the future. Like, let me tell you, if Norfolk Southern got taken to court in a really major way, it would signal to absolutely every other company like them that they need to mind their P's and Q's in a very serious way. And that's how it used to be. Like, companies would incur more expenses upfront to protect themselves in the long run from these lawsuits. They used to be called nuisance lawsuits. Now they're environmental lawsuits. And they did that with profit in mind. But once the progressive era came in and a bunch of courts decided to stop prosecuting these things, like, it became unaffordable for companies to be green. So, like, let's say you're a businessman that really cares, which by the way, a lot of them do. Let's say you're a businessman who cares and wants to take these precautions. Well, the market might flood you out because nobody else is really incurring any, you know, costs if they do pollute other people's property, right? And this is perfectly in line with libertarian values. Like, protecting private property and using the courts this way is in line with this.
Yeah, and I think another free market angle we could even take on this is that Pete Buttigieg was complaining that the Trump administration, oh my God, the big bad evil Trump administration, they ruined the ECP plan, the electronic pneumatic brakes. They ruined it. Oh my God. Well, in a free market, wouldn't a train railroad company be able to put any precautionary devices on their train if they wanted to?
Yes, and they do.
Right.
Because they don't want to have massive explosions like this. Like, this was gross negligence, but if you know that you're going to incur some serious costs if anything goes wrong, like, you mind your P's and Q's. Right? That's what we call the invisible hand of the market working, right? You will take on these safety measures as like a free market regulation. Like, the government doesn't have to do it. If the courts do it through tort reform, then I think companies would actually take on more responsibility. Because right now, essentially what you have are these major companies and the EPA and other regulators in bed together.